Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. Chase Sr. here with you. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend and your weeks are off to a great start. Coming up on the show, Niners fans and the Niners getting good news from a stress-free Sunday. Also, going to take a look at some pass rusher trade targets after that Nick Bosa injury. With the 49ers beating the Rams on Thursday, how they won it, it has to give general manager John Lynch a lot of belief that this team is for real, but they need to upgrade the pass rusher spot because last two games without Nick Bosa, they haven't been able to generate pressure on the QB. Let's begin here. How about this? 49ers fans were able to enjoy a stress-free Sunday. Now, of course, with that win over the Rams, it coming down to the wire and the Niners winning that game in overtime, it was a stressful Thursday. But what if I told you that the 49ers won the day yesterday in Week 5 inside the NFC West, and they did not even have to play? That's because San Francisco in Week 5, with that heroic comeback victory against the Rams, were able to win. But then every other team inside this division fell during the Week 5 slate. What a crazy game we saw yesterday afternoon between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Seattle Seahawks. The Buccaneers able to win on a last-second field goal. Final score 38-35. They took a big lead early. Then the Seahawks able to come back. Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield had ridiculous numbers in this game. And then Sam Darnold throws that pick late in the game off the helmet of a Buccaneers player into the hands of Levante David, and in a game that looked as though we were going to overtime, then resulted in a Chase McLaughlin field goal as the time expired. And so the Buccaneers win that game by 3. Look at these numbers here from Baker Mayfield. 29 of 33, 379 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, including the touchdown to tie it late in the game to Sterling Shepard. Rachaad White, 14 carries, 41 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Found the end zone twice. The Buccaneers of note in this game without their other really good running back, Bucky Irving, probably not going to be able to play against San Francisco in Week 6. That matchup's going to be a great one. More on that in a moment. And Emeka Egbuka continues to be one of the best overall rookies in this 2025 draft class. He was on fire in Seattle. 7 catches, 163 yards, and a touchdown. For Seattle, Sam Darnold, 28 of 34, 341 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. That pick led to that Buccaneers victory, though. Kenneth Walker, a good game, 10 carries for 86 yards. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba, another Ohio State wide receiver, popping off on Sunday, 8 catches for 132 yards and a tutty. And so the Seahawks, after they had won 3 games in a row, lose against the Buccaneers. And then in one of the craziest finishes that you will see, just like that Buccaneers-Seahawks game was a crazy finish, this one more of the shocking variety. The Tennessee Titans come back. They win their first game of the season. 22-21 the final score. And I was shocked because I walked away from the TV with Tennessee down 21-6 thinking they're about to fall to 0-5. Is their head coach Brian Callahan going to get fired? And then I come back to the TV not long after that, and I see that the Titans are in the lead. There was this run from DeMarcado where it looked as though he was going to take it to the house, 70-plus yards. It's 21-6. Clearly, he's about to walk into the end zone. But what did he do? What Deshaun Jackson did many years ago for the Eagles, what Adonai Mitchell did last week for the Colts. He fumbled right before the goal line. And so it was ruled a fumble, not a touchdown. And in a game that would have been 28-6 Arizona, stayed 21-6 Arizona. Then the Titans are able to come back and shock the Cardinals. The Cardinals have lost 3 games in a row. All 3 of those losses have come on last-second field goals as the clock has expired. Cam Ward, rookie first-round pick, first overall pick for Tennessee, able to get his first win of his career, 21 of 39, 265 yards, no touchdowns with a pick. Tony Pollard, 14 totes for 67 yards. Calvin Ridley, a really good game. 5 catches for $131. Kyler Murray injured his foot, came back into the game. 23 of 31. He had a really bad fumble off his face mask when he was in the shotgun. Amari DiMercato, 3 carries, 81 yards. 70-plus came on that carry, but it wasn't a touchdown. It should have been. It wasn't. Dumbass play by him. And then Marvin Harrison, a good game after it looked as though he was getting off to a really rocky start this year on top of last year. And in that primetime game a couple of weeks ago on Thursday against Seattle, had a couple of drops, looked disinterested, had that big touchdown catch late, and then in this game, able to carry on that momentum. And so the Cardinals go down as well. The other NFC West team that lost in Week 5, the Rams, at the hands of the 49ers. San Francisco winning that game in overtime, 26-23. And we could, of course, refresh your memory. Mac Jones was superb. 33 of 49 for 342 yards, 2 tutties, and no interceptions. Christian McCaffrey, just another great all-purpose game, running it and catching it, even though San Francisco's still having a lot of struggles in running the football. Kendrick Bourne literally had the game of his life. 10 catches for 142. Matthew Stafford looked like an MVP. 30 of 47, 389 with 3 touchdowns. Kyron Williams, the big fumble, thanks to the big rookie, Alfred Collins, punching it out at the 1. And then Devontae Adams, 5 catches for 88 yards. An underrated storyline in that game, how the 49ers held Puka Nacua to a season low in receiving yards. And in just going back to that game, craziness defined, right? Because the Niners were without so many great players, so many marquee players with huge roles. They pretty much needed to pitch a perfect game and play flawlessly. They did. They needed other players to step up and have really good performances. They did. They needed the ball to bounce their way. That happened as well. Mac Jones stellar. Kendrick Bourne balled out. You had the Blake Corum fumble early in the game, recovered by Travis Gibson, who was just elevated from the practice squad to the game day roster for that game because of the injuries at the defensive end spot. The Rams missed a field goal. Eddie Pinheiro connected on a 59-yard field goal, the longest of his career. The 49ers also blocked an extra point. That helped to win the game. Alfred Collins had that forced fumble at the 1 on Kyron Williams. Then the Rams kick it away in overtime. It doesn't land in the landing zone. That gives the Niners good field position. Then Eddie Pinheiro's overtime field goal was good by a hair. I mean, it grazed off that left upright. And then the Niners, with that epic, legendary 4th down stop for the walk-off win. And so the Niners didn't even have to play on Sunday, and they maintained sole possession of first place in the NFC West. San Francisco 4-1. The Seahawks, it looked as though maybe they were going to go 4-1, but they lose that game to Tampa Bay because the Niners beat the Rams. Rams fall to 3-2. They've lost 2 games in their last 3. And then the Cardinals, after starting 2-0 on a 3-game losing streak, again, all of those losses, field goals at the buzzer. Up next for San Francisco, they're going up against that feisty Buccaneers team. Baker Mayfield is a dog. And I've said he's the best late-game quarterback right now. And in the last 2 years, he's been a bona fide top 10 guy. He moves the ball at will. He'll extend plays. He'll run with the football. He can complete passes at any level. And so this will be a huge test for this Niners defense. And if they can't generate a pass rush, it could be a long day for this Niners secondary. These numbers against Seattle, stupid. Just ridiculous. 29-33, 379 yards, 11.5 yards per attempt, and then those 2 touchdowns and no picks. Tomorrow on the show, this is why you subscribe to the channel. We give you news, we give you previews, analysis, reactions, breaking news, rumors. We do it all. I'm going to give you my Niners-Buccaneers preview right here on the channel, so be on the lookout for that. Still to come here on the show, going to take a look at 2 more pass rusher trade targets for San Francisco. They need to make at least 1 move to address that area of weakness for San Francisco. Before we get into that, today's 49ers Report, sponsored and brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks, the #1 fantasy sports app in the industry. You can win big up to 2,000 times your money. And PrizePicks has a couple of new features. It's the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Josh Allen's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns. Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on PrizePicks. Follow other PrizePicks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just someone whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on PrizePicks. Little 3-pick power play for some Monday Night Football between the Chiefs and the Jags. Isaiah Pacheco, more than 29.5 rushing yards. Trevor Lawrence, more than a half passing touchdown. And then Xavier Worthy, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. Download the PrizePicks app. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Let's talk some Niners trade buzz here. Nick Underhill covers the New Orleans Saints, and the Saints are a team that, yes, did defeat the New York Giants in Week 5 for their first win of the season, but they're in rebuild mode. I think Kellen Moore has brought quality coaching to that Saints organization. They've looked much better prepared and in sync as a unit with him as the head coach compared to the last few years where they have been disjointed. But the point here is that given their record and where they are as an organization, they could look to sell going into the trade deadline, and they can make a couple of players available. So Nick Underhill reporting that there are teams interested in some of the Saints' veteran players, and they'll be watching to see who becomes available in the coming weeks. League sources tell me there's a feeling around the league that New Orleans will be open to hearing offers in the coming weeks. And there are 3 players specifically for the Niners that are of interest because of the positions that they play. Carl Granderson, defensive end, Chase Young, defensive end, and Cameron Jordan, defensive end. Now, I do not think the Niners are going to reunite with Chase Young, but he is on the block, and he's a player that teams could be looking at who are in need of a defensive end and a pass rusher. Let's focus in on Granderson and Jordan, because I'm not even going to spend a lot of time talking about Chase Young. For Granderson, 29 years old, this year having a really solid season. In 4 games played thus far, 4.5 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, 6 TFLs, and 2 pass breakups. He has shown a consistent ability to get after the quarterback, 5.5 sacks in 2024 with 13 quarterback hits, 9 TFLs. He can play the run in 2023, 8.5 sacks, 20 quarterback hits with 14 TFLs. And then in 2022, 5.5 sacks, 9 quarterback hits, and 9 TFLs. The Niners know all about Chase Young. And this is a trade that I liked in 2023 because then they needed a pass rusher as well. Chase Young had some solid moments. I thought in the Super Bowl he played well after he loafed it in the NFC Championship game, but the Niners simply are not going to reunite with him. And he's just had so many injury problems as well. Niners don't want to go after an injury-riddled player who they know has some concerns with his hustle, and they're trying to preach hustle with a lot of their young players. Now, Cam Jordan is a member of the 2010s All-Decade team, one of the best Saints players in the history of that organization. Obviously, he's a little bit older. He's not an every down defensive end for this Niners team if they were to bring him in, but a great veteran presence who I think could get some juice if he joins a playoff level team. Sometimes we see that with these trade deadline acquisitions that they get rejuvenated to a certain degree. This year does have 2.5 sacks. Last year had 4. 2023 had 2. 2022 is last highly productive season. 8.5 sacks, 13 quarterback hits, 13 TFLs. He'd be low on the list of players who I actually want. My top 2 defensive end targets by far, Trey Hendrickson, Kayvon Thibodeau. I wouldn't love Cam Jordan unless it was like a second trade to bring in defensive end depth for a mid to late round pick. And I do want to touch on this. The other day, I was live here on the San Francisco 49ers Report, and a viewer asked me about the Niners trading for Tennessee Titans defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons. And I know that he plays defensive tackle and not defensive end, but he is a pretty interesting trade target for San Francisco. The Titans, of course, came back for that wild win on the road against the Cardinals on Sunday, but they're one of the worst teams in the NFL. They'll be picking in the top 3 of the 2026 NFL draft. They could look to sell and get rid of veterans for draft picks once the deadline comes around after week 9. And Jeffrey Simmons becomes an interesting player for San Francisco because while he doesn't help to replace Nick Bosa at that position, he can help this Niners team enhance their pass rush. For a long time, he's been one of the top defensive tackles in the game, a 2-time All-Pro. And for a little while there, I thought he was number 2 behind Chris Jones for being the second best defensive tackle in the game. And he'd be able to help San Francisco both from a pass rushing standpoint along the interior, but at times he will line up at defensive end. He has 2 sacks so far this year, 5 in 2024, 5.5 in 2023, 7.5 in 2022. This is a player who, if you acquire and he gets to play for a playoff team, I think he gets rejuvenated and he brings San Francisco a level of energy and pass rush production that they desperately need. And I don't think that he would cost all that much in a trade, but his contract is a little bit hefty. Give me a follow on X and Instagram, by the way. I'm always talking Niners here, always talking Niners over there as well.